Well, a day after the reboot of the Union Cabinet, a number of newly appointed ministers took charge of their assignments. But what were some of the key decisions which were taken, which resulted in the profound changes which we've seen? For more on that, it's across to my colleague Shankar.
So the first cabinet met today. This is Modi's new team which met. This included a lot of old people, but many new people who've been inducted. Let's now quickly take a look at how, if you were to link this to a computer keyboard, an attempt has been made to control, alternate and delete. All these three things have been attempted in this cabinet. But what are those big changes? We have tried to explain by way of information from sources on what was known about people and what is not openly known. So first, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, what was known about him? He was a former PM Atal Bihari Vajpayee's private secretary. He's a technocrat, Wharton School educated, IS officer from Odisha, known to have strong administrative experience. Now, what is not openly known, which is important for you to know, the government wants a massive push to the BharatNet scheme, which falls under the IT ministry, which was so far with Ravi Shankar Prasad, and we'll come to that in a minute. Why does the government feel the need to give a massive push to BharatNet? What is BharatNet? BharatNet basically is to make internet available to each and every village in this country, so that internet is readily available to all villages and following a PPP model, which means public-private partnership model. Now, what is Mr. Vaishnav's speciality? He specializes in the PPP model. That has been one of his core strengths. So could this be one big reason why an ambitious pet Modi project, which was lying stalled for a while and missing deadlines, you had Mr. Vaishnav elevated to this position? The government also expects a tactful handling of the big tech mess. However, Mr. Vaishnav has said and reiterated the government's position that big companies will have to follow the rule of law. Let's quickly listen in. In fact, also let's quickly tell you that his administrative experience can be of good use in the rail ministry as well. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
सर, आईटी मिनिस्टर के सामने सबसे बड़ा कॉन्फ्लिक्ट था ट्विटर के साथ जो पैच चल रहा है, उस पर आपका क्या कहना है? क्या सोशल मीडिया आईटी गाइडलाइंस को मानेगा कि जो विवाद चल रहा है उसमें?
आपके सारे के सारे प्रश्न, उन्हीं प्रश्नों में आपका जवाब है। देश के कानून के साथ सभी को उसका पालन करना चाहिए। जो देश का कानून है, देश का कानून सबको पालन करना चाहिए।
लेकिन डेडलाइन तो निकल के तब भी नहीं कर रहे हो।
So he's made it very clear that the minister may have changed, the policy hasn't, which means that was not the reason for Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad's exit. But what was the reason? Let's find out. So in this control all delete, what happened to Ravi Shankar Prasad? In fact, let's quickly take a look at Mansukh Mandavia. Let's talk about Mansukh Mandavia. He's now been elevated as the health minister. Now, why has this happened? Now, what is known about him? Mandavia is an MP from Gujarat. Now, if you recall, this Gujarat MP is significant because Gujarat is going to polls in 2022. Elevation is being seen as an effort to shore up support in the Prime Minister's home state. But what is not openly known on your screen right now? He's also, by the way, being trolled for qualifications to head the health ministry. Lots of trolling that is happening at this moment. But what is not openly known is this. Mandavia earned the Prime Minister's praise as the shipping minister. Now, what does shipping minister have to do with handling COVID? During the peak of the second wave, he oversaw oxygen cryogenic tanker imports, and he did this crisis management silently, which is why he earned the Prime Minister's praise. So this could be one of the reasons why he has had a significant elevation. Let's quickly listen in to what Mr. Mandavia had to say.
माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने मुझे स्वास्थ्य मंत्रालय की जिम्मेवारी दी गई है। स्वास्थ्य मंत्री के रूप में प्रधानमंत्री जी की अपेक्षा के अनुसार मैं काम करने की कोशिश करूंगा।
So now let's quickly take a look at what was the reason behind Ravi Shankar Prasad's exit. Let's take a look. So Ravi Shankar Prasad, what was known? It is known that he picked up a fight with big tech firms. Now we know that this is the government's position, not Mr. Prasad's personal opinion. He could not resolve the big tech fight, so many people thought that because he took panga with Twitter, and that's why he has been sacked. A new minister is going to inherit this prolonged battle. But ladies and gentlemen, this is not the reason behind his exit. What is the reason? Let's quickly tell you. This is not openly known. He was actually struggling to implement that ambitious BharatNet program. What is BharatNet? Let's quickly repeat once again. It is to provide internet in all villages, to make sure that there is internet connectivity across all the villages in this country. Its deadline was June 2021, which had been missed. That deadline had been missed. And even now, there was no great plan to be able to do it successfully. And this is a project very close to the Prime Minister. Ravi Shankar Prasad's functioning as a law minister was also put to doubt and also in question. Now let's talk about the other exit, Prakash Javadekar. What has happened to him? Let's find out. So what was known about Mr. Javadekar is this. He was the face of the cabinet briefings. Very important man. Mr. Javadekar, face of cabinet briefings, also the old face to defend the government's decisions. Also, very few of the Vajpayee era ministers left in the cabinet, and now he too went. But what is not known about Mr. Prakash Javadekar is this. He had a poor track record as an environment minister. Remember, this was a crucial portfolio with him. Since March 2020, he has been criticized that no great progress has happened in the environment ministry. Environment ministry has to make the strategy, which was unclear ahead of COP26, which is supposed to happen later this year. Another important point, the Prime Minister in 2019, if you remember, had launched a great campaign to ban single-use plastic. Very little forward movement took place on that front. And now this basically means that the task is cut out for the new man on the job, whom Modi trusts, is the organization's man, Mr. Bhupendra Yadav. So he will have to do all of these things that Mr. Javadekar could not. All right, let's talk about Mr. Kaushal Kishore. One more upgrade from Uttar Pradesh. You would think that this is some sort of a caste arithmetic which has been done. Now that is the obvious thing to think. Let's first find out, let's quickly take a look at what is the obvious things about Mr. Kaushal Kishore. What is known? He represents the Awadh region in Uttar Pradesh, is from Mohanlalganj, which is close to Lucknow. What else? UP goes to polls in 2022. The caste arithmetic has been sorted. Elevation is seen as an attempt to provide regional representation. Now what is not openly known is this. Mr. Kishore wrote a letter to the Yogi government and Yogi Adityanath particularly, complaining of arrangements during COVID. Now when did this happen? This happened at a time when Yogi Adityanath himself was claiming that there is no shortage in Uttar Pradesh. In a way, he picked up an open fight against Yogi Adityanath. In fact, for the past 2 years, he has been making statements and utterances against Mr. Yogi Adityanath. Imagine what this means. His elevation is huge. Lesser known fact, Mr. Kishore was publicly assured by Amit Shah during election campaigning in 2019 that he will be made minister. So that promise has been honored. Now let's talk about Nisit Brahmanik from Bengal, 35-year-old. What do we know about him? Nisit is a young MP from Bengal. This reshuffle was intended to give chance to newer faces from Bengal, and after the loss in assembly polls, a reshuffle was bound to affect many of the sitting ministers who fought elections in Bengal and lost, so they had to go. So this rejig was expected. What is not known or not commonly known is the following. Nisit is a vocal critic of Mamata Banerjee. Brahmanik was inducted as MOS Home, the third Minister of State for Home to work under Amit Shah, and this time around from West Bengal. Could this be, you know about the conflict between the state government as well as the central government, is this a specialized central monitoring of the law and order situation in Bengal? Could that be the motive for a ministry to have 3 MOSs? This is very, very significant.